نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Friends, Assalamu alaikum. I made a video just now regarding the Intactivist threat, and I want to make a second video on this topic because it requires a lot more detailed points to discuss. And I might just actually delete that video and make this video more comprehensive for the viewers so it's more profitable and beneficial for you. As I mentioned, the Intactivist movement is a relatively modern movement. They call themselves Intactivists because they claim that circumcision, male circumcision, is a mutilation, and that a man who is circumcised is not intact according to them. Totally bogus and stupid argument. Circumcision is a very healthy procedure, and it does not really take away anything significant. It's we practice it for religious reasons, and this is from the Abrahamic covenant, which we Muslims observe. We consider ourselves part of the Abrahamic covenant, and also in our Sharia, and in the Sunnah of our Prophet. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ordained circumcision, and he practiced circumcision, and he had his grandsons Hassan and Hussein circumcised on the 7th day after their birth. So it's the Sunnah to circumcise a baby, a Muslim male baby, in infancy, and not to wait until he becomes an adolescent, as some Muslims do that in North Africa of the Maliki school. They wait until the child is 13 years old, when he becomes an adolescent, when he becomes an adult, then they circumcise him. But this is an error. It shouldn't be done so late. It should be done in infancy. Why it should be done in infancy? Because it's less traumatic for the child. You don't remember it. That's how I was circumcised when I was a baby, and I don't remember it at all. I don't feel any trauma about it. Of course, it's a painful procedure. And you're going to circumcise a boy who's 13. It's going to be painful. It's going to be traumatic. He's going to be nervous. He's going to be embarrassed. He's going to be scared. And he's going to be traumatized by it, possibly. Therefore, the sunnah is to circumcise the baby when he's a baby, when he's an infant, on the 7th or the 8th day. Now, the objection to our practice, our religious practice, is that it is unnecessary, or it is a mutilation, or there's no consent involved for the child. And as I said, a baby does not have the same rights as an adult. His parents have control over him, and they don't ask his consent when they change the diapers, or when they give him a bath, or when they give him a haircut, or when they when you change the diapers, you clean the private parts. If it's an adult, you need to have consent to do such a thing. But in the case of a baby, there's no consent. So why is consent required for circumcision? That's the parent's decision to make, or the legal guardian of the child is decision to make. And to say that no, you have to wait till the child is old enough, then he'll be able to consent, he'll make his own decision. By that time, for many people, it will be too late, and they would actually regret the fact that their parents didn't have them circumcised when they were in infancy. Because to the most of the people who are circumcised in the world are Muslims. We are the ones who practice this, especially as a religious practice. Jews also practice it, but they're a very small minority, and many of them are becoming secular, or are already, most of them are secular and don't really practice it anymore. But we Muslims, we are the main practitioners of male infant circumcision on the planet, and we do it for religious reasons, as I explained. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he commanded circumcision, and when a person approached him who had converted to Islam newly, he told him to do two things. He was a man. He said, first of all, in fact, he told him to do three things. He said, first of all, shave off the hair on your head. That's the hair of kufr. Start a fresh start, so shave off your head. This is not for women, this is only for men. Women are forbidden to shave their head under any circumstances in our religion. But a man should shave his head when he converts to Islam, and then regrow his hair. The second thing he commanded him was to take a bath, cleanse your body, do a sort of a ghusl, a full body washing, and this is just to again to symbolize a new start, a new life, and to also to purify yourself from the kufr and from the najasa that's associated with kufr. And the third thing he commanded him was to get circumcised. So it is a commandment to be circumcised. It's not simply something that's recommended or something that's optional or something that's praiseworthy. It is a religious obligation for every Muslim man to be circumcised, no matter what his age is. And as you know, the Prophet Abraham, he circumcised himself when Allah gave him the commandment. He was an elderly man. He was over 80 years old, maybe over 100 years old, according to different narrations. And so if a man that's over 100 years old is going to circumcise himself to fulfill God's commandment, then nobody else has an excuse to say, well, I'm too old now and I'm past the age and I can't do it. No. If you convert to Islam, you got to be serious about it and you got to get circumcised. This is one of the very fundamental practices of our religion, where in fact it is a mark that distinguishes a Muslim from a non-Muslim. It's a mark that distinguishes a Muslim from a non-Muslim in 99% of the cases. In India, for example, where Muslims and Hindus live side by side, and there's a massive Muslim community, and of course the majority are Hindus. This has always been the thing which distinguishes Muslims from non-Muslims, from the Hindus and the Sikhs and the Christians and the Buddhists and other religions, is that Muslims practice circumcision. And even if a corpse was discovered, if a dead body was discovered and people didn't know who it was, maybe he was murdered or was found on the side of the road, and they didn't know, is this a Muslim body or is this a Hindu? Because if it's a Muslim, we have to bury it in the grave. And if it's a Hindu, then they will cremate the body on a funeral pyre. They'll set fire to the body. And for us to set fire to a Muslim body is a desecration. So we find that a corpse is unknown. Is that a Muslim or a Hindu? The easiest way is to check if it's circumcised. If he's circumcised, it's a Muslim, obviously. Then you send it to the Muslim cemetery to be buried. So this has always been our way. It's like a branding. A way to distinguish ourselves from the non-Muslims. And as I said, in the world today, it's only Muslims who practice this, largely speaking. There are exceptions. There in the United States of America, it was popularized for some time as something considered medically sound and hygienic back in the 1950s. But now that trend is going away, and now it's going to be, as the future unfolds, that the only people who really will practice circumcision in the future are Muslims as a religious rite, rite. Now there are calls to ban circumcision in the West. Recently, in the year 2017, I believe the government of Iceland, the Parliament of Iceland, was considering a proposal to ban male circumcision, infant male circumcision. And if the Muslims had not raised their voice in protest and say this is our religious freedom that's being infringed upon by such a proposal, then perhaps Iceland would have legislated such a law. And who knows, they may do so in the future. And other countries in Europe, especially in Scandinavia and in Western Europe, that consider themselves to be super progressive and super, committed to so-called human rights, that they will say, oh, this is a violation of human rights. They'll make it into a human rights issue and say the baby doesn't consent, therefore it has to be banned. And again, as I said, I pointed out that's a totally illogical and stupid argument to say that a baby can't consent to a lot of things, but it's still done to him or her. Now, not all Muslims believe in circumcision. 99% Muslims do, because Sunni Muslims believe in it. I believe other sects also. But one sect in particular does not practice circumcision or does not believe in it, and those are the Quranists, the Hadith rejectors, a very new modern sect. Many Muslims don't even consider them to be Muslim. They consider them to be a new religion because they deny so many fundamentals of Islam. That the Quranists, they argue that the Quran does not mention circumcision, therefore this is an innovation of us Sunni Muslims. Although circumcision was mass practiced by the Muslim since the dawn of Islam for centuries upon centuries, no, you know, distinction or no exception to that up until the Quran has come along and put a question mark on this practice and saying it's not mentioned in the Quran. It's not mentioned explicitly in the Quran, but the Quran does mention the Millat Ibrahim, the rituals of Abraham that we Muslims are bound by, and that includes circumcision. That's well known. That's the covenant of circumcision. So that is an answer to the Quranist movement that is opposed to this practice. And why do we practice circumcision? Primarily, it is as I mentioned, it's a religious rite. It's part of the covenant. It's a mark of the covenant. It's a way for us to distinguish ourselves from the non-Muslims. There are also hygienic benefits. There are also medical benefits, but those are secondary. Those are not the main reason why we practice it. And those who are opposing it, they are called themselves intactivists, and they're becoming more and more vocal, and they're putting more and more pressure on through political agitation to have this religious practice of ours banned. And that would be a violation of our religious freedom. Now, I'm pretty sure that in the United States of America, because of the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights, that this cannot be conceivably be banned. Any kind of state ban on this practice would be struck down immediately by the Supreme Court. Hopefully, I mean, this is my impression, but I could be wrong about that too, because who knows? The world is changing so fast. Moral standards are being transformed right before our eyes, and most people who are progressive, who identify as progressive and liberal and secular and atheist and agnostic, they're already totally against circumcision. And as they become the majority in society, they're going to say one day that let's pass a law and let's ban this practice altogether. And that will be a huge setback for our community. Be a huge setback for our community. It's also mentioned in among the intactivists that circumcision, it is barbaric, and it is, you know, this prehistoric or this sort of medieval or even Bronze Age, Iron Age, whatever they say, kind of practice, and it should be banned. Again, they are coming up with this idea in within this very decade, or at the earliest maybe in the last decade. Before that, nobody ever said that this is barbaric. Yeah, people didn't practice it. People don't most of humanity doesn't practice it. And the ancient Romans, they used to make fun of the Jews for practicing it. The ancient Greeks used to make fun of the Jews for practicing it. But they never said this is something that, you know, should be banned. Perhaps they did ban it, but that was due to their prejudice. But in the modern world, up until recently, there has never been a call to ban this practice because it's so widespread among Muslims. And so this is something that alarms us, and we have to be concerned about this issue. Muslims can't keep on putting their head in the sand like an ostrich. They have got to realize that many of our fundamental religious practices are being jeopardized in the name of so-called secularism. Circumcision is only one of them. Next, they're going to ban halal food. They're going to ban the halal method of slaughter. They've already done it in many European countries. They're going to ban the hijab. They've already done it in many European countries. They're going to ban Muslims from, segregating their children and or segregating mosques. Keep you having a men's section and a ladies section. They're going to say no. We're going to close down such mosques. They've already in Europe, many Muslims have been denied citizenship on the basis of the fact that they do not shake hands with ladies. And then they intentionally they will provoke this type of situation where there's a Muslim refugee or immigrant, he's applying for citizenship. A lady will come and approach him and will deliberately put out her hands for him to shake the hands, knowing full well that he doesn't want to do that. He's uncomfortable with that. But she will do that intentionally. And then if he refuses to shake his hand with her, then they'll say, "Oh, you are sexist. You are a misogynist, and your type of sexism and misogyny, it doesn't belong in the Western world. So you cannot become a citizen, and we're gonna deny your citizenship request. So you can see clearly a lot of these things are uh, being proposed due to malice toward Muslims. The intention, it's just a pretense that, oh, this is for human rights. This is for because the baby can't consent. That's their pretense. Their real motivation is that they don't like Muslims, so they want to ban practices that are unique to Muslims, such as the fact that we practice circumcision. Keep that in mind. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.